HOA threw a wedding on my property without asking, so I called a bulldozer and filmed it. What would you do if you woke up to find your backyard transformed into someone else's wedding venue without your permission? For Sarah Thompson, a single mother and proud homeowner in a quiet suburban neighborhood, this wasn't a hypothetical. It was a Saturday morning she'd never forget. One that would spark a battle of wills, a clash of egos, and a lesson in boundaries that her entitled HOA president, Karen Whitmore, would learn the hard way. Sarah had always cherished her modest 2-acre property, a haven she'd carved out after years of saving and sacrifice. Her backyard, with its sprawling lawn and wildflower garden, was her sanctuary, a place where she and her 10-year-old daughter, Lily, would stargaze, host barbecues, or simply sit in the peace of their own space. But that morning, as Sarah sipped her coffee and glanced out her kitchen window, her heart stopped. Her backyard was unrecognizable. White chairs were neatly arranged in rows, a floral arch stood at the far end, and a catering van was parked on her grass, unloading tables. Strangers were bustling about, setting up what looked like a full-blown wedding. No one had asked her. No one had even knocked. Fury surged through her veins. But Sarah wasn't one to leap without looking. She marched outside, her robe still on, and confronted the first person she saw, a caterer arranging silverware. "Excuse me, what's going on here?" she demanded. The caterer, a nervous young man, stammered, The HOA president, Karen, said this was the venue for her daughter's wedding. She told us it was all arranged." Sarah's jaw tightened. Karen Whitmore, the self-appointed queen of the neighborhood, had a reputation for bulldozing over everyone's boundaries, figuratively, at least. But this was a new low. Sarah stormed back inside, grabbed her phone, and dialed Karen. When the call went to voicemail, she tried the HOA office. No answer. A quick check of her mailbox revealed no notices, no permits, no courtesy heads-up. Karen had simply decided Sarah's property was fair game. The audacity burned, but Sarah wasn't just angry, she was strategic. She'd dealt with Karen's petty power trips before. Fines for her wildflower garden being too untidy. Complaints about Lily's bike left on the driveway. Each time, Sarah had complied to keep the peace. But this was war. She wasn't going to let Karen turn her home into a free-for-all. As Sarah stood in her kitchen watching the wedding crew trample her garden, a memory sparked. Her neighbor, Tom, a retired contractor with a penchant for dramatic solutions, had once mentioned he still had access to heavy machinery. "If you ever need to make a point," he'd winked, "I know a guy with a bulldozer." At the time, Sarah had laughed it off. Now it felt like fate. She called Tom, explained the situation, and within an hour he was at her doorstep, grinning like a kid on Christmas morning. "You serious about this?" he asked. Sarah nodded, her resolve steel. "Let's give them a show." But there was a twist Sarah hadn't anticipated. As she and Tom plotted, her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Sarah, don't do anything rash. I'm Karen's assistant, Lila. She's out of control and I can help." Lila, a quiet woman Sarah barely knew, revealed she'd been working for Karen for years and was fed up with her boss's entitlement. Lila had overheard Karen bragging about borrowing Sarah's property, claiming it was for the good of the community and that Sarah wouldn't mind. Lila offered to send Sarah the HOA's internal emails, which confirmed Karen hadn't sought permission or even mentioned the wedding to the board. Armed with this evidence, Sarah felt a surge of confidence. She wasn't just fighting for her property, she was exposing a tyrant. The confrontation began at noon. The wedding guests were arriving, dressed in pastel suits and dresses, oblivious to the storm brewing. Karen, in a gaudy mother-of-the-bride gown, was directing florists when Sarah approached, Lila's emails printed and tucked under her arm. "Karen," Sarah called, her voice calm but cutting. "Why is there a wedding on my property?" Karen's smile faltered, but she recovered quickly, her tone dripping with condescension. "Oh, Sarah, don't be so dramatic. This is a community space, and my daughter's wedding is a community event. You should be honored." Sarah's blood boiled, but she kept her cool. "This is my private property, Karen. You didn't ask, and I'm not part of your HOA's jurisdiction. I have the deeds to prove it." She held up the emails, watching Karen's face pale. "And these show you knew you had no right to do this." The crowd murmured, sensing the tension. Karen scoffed, doubling down. "You're being selfish, Sarah. This wedding is happening, and if you interfere, I'll make sure the HOA fines you into oblivion." That was the moment Sarah knew there was no reasoning with Karen. She nodded to Tom, who'd been waiting by the fence. With a theatrical wave, He signaled to a rumbling beast rolling down the street. A bulldozer, its metal blade gleaming in the midday sun. Gasps rippled through the crowd as Tom climbed into the cab, revving the engine for effect. Sarah had instructed him to keep it symbolic, no actual destruction, but the sight alone was enough. Guests froze, caterers dropped trays, and Karen's face twisted in horror. "You wouldn't dare," she shrieked. "Oh, I would," Sarah replied, pulling out her phone to start recording. "You trespassed, Karen. You violated my rights. And now, I'm taking my yard back." The bulldozer inched forward, stopping just short of the floral arch. The message was clear. Sarah wasn't bluffing. Karen's bravado crumbled as guests began to whisper, some pulling out their own phones to film. Lila, standing nearby, quietly handed Sarah another documented petition signed by half the neighborhood, fed up with Karen's overreach and ready to vote her out as HOA president. Karen's downfall was swift and spectacular. As the bulldozer loomed, she tried to rally the guests, claiming Sarah was ruining a sacred day. But the tide had turned. The bride, Karen's daughter, stormed over, tears streaming. "Mom, you told me this was all approved." "You lied." The guests, now aware of the trespass, began to leave, muttering about Karen's audacity. The caterers packed up, unwilling to risk legal trouble. By the time the bulldozer rolled back down the street, ever touching a single flower, the wedding was in shambles and Karen was alone, her gown a garish symbol of her hubris. The aftermath was a reckoning. With Lila's help, Sarah presented the petition and emails to the HOA board, who promptly removed Karen from her position. The neighborhood rallied around Sarah, some even offering to help restore her trampled garden. The viral video of the bulldozer standoff, posted on X, sparked a firestorm of support for Sarah and condemnation of entitled HOAs. Karen, humiliated, sold her house and moved away, her reign of terror over. Sarah, meanwhile, turned her backyard into a community garden, not for the HOA but for her neighbors, a place where everyone was welcome, on her terms. In the end, Sarah's stand wasn't just about her property. It was about reclaiming her voice, her rights, and her peace. She and Lily planted new wildflowers that spring, their laughter echoing across the yard. The bulldozer, a symbol of defiance, became a local legend, a reminder that no one, not even a Karen, can trample on what's yours without a fight. So what do you think? Was Sarah right to call in the bulldozer? Or should she have handled it differently? Share your thoughts. Where do you draw the line when someone crosses your boundaries?